New information has come out about how the US military was actually behind much of the anti-vax movement inside of Asia. That's right. The US government actually spent resources on trying to convince people inside of Asia not to take the COVID vaccine and intentionally spread false information, anti-vax, anti-science nonsense with the pure, unadulterated intention of undermining China. It was all aimed to sow doubt in the safety and efficacy of vaccines and other life-saving equipment that was being brought in from China. Now, this was according to a Reuters investigation, even after having talked to at least one person inside the Pentagon. That's right. The U.S. government went out of its way to undermine confidence in vaccines and personal protective gear, specifically just to harm China's influence in Asia. So as China was giving out basically tons of vaccines at like really low cost or sometimes even for free, the U.S. was trying to undermine that just so that they could undermine China. And this was largely done in the Philippines, which, by the way, had one of the worst vaccination rates of any country in the world. Now, through phony internet accounts meant to impersonate Filipino social media posts, decried the quality of face masks, test kits, and the first vaccine that would become available in the Philippines, China's Sinovac inoculation. COVID came from China and the Valcone came from China. Don't trust China. One typical tweet from July 2020 read in Tagalog. And this is a sample of many of the kinds of posts that the Pentagon faked in order to spread this misinformation. Now, after Reuters reached out to X, formerly known as Twitter, about these fake accounts, Twitter all of a sudden discovered that they were bots and then removed them. So aside from this notion that Elon Musk was going to fight the fake accounts designed to spread false information, he didn't actually do it. In fact, he pretty much went through on as a tool of the United States to deliberately spread misinformation while talking about how he was about free speech and was going to fight government corruption, misinformation, and all that. Wow, what do you know? A capitalist was actually full of shit and actually enabling the system the entire time. Now, it actually gets much worse. Here's some more information according to Reuters. The U.S. military's anti-vax effort began in the spring of 2020 and expanded beyond Southeast Asia before it was terminated mid-2021, Reuters determined. Tailoring the propaganda to local audiences across Central Asia and the Middle East, the Pentagon used a combination of fake social media accounts on multiple platforms to spread fear of China's vaccines among Muslims at a time when the virus was killing tens of thousands of people each day. A key part of the strategy amplified the disputed contention that because vaccines sometimes contain pork gelatin, China's shots could be considered forbidden under Islamic law. So basically, Islam was being used by the United States as a justification for not taking vaccines. And that everything is there for somehow haram and that you should die of corona as a result. It sounds about part and parcel of what the United States would do to Muslims, which is, I guess you could see it as a step up from just outright bombing them and mass murdering them. Now, the U.S. military program under former President Donald Trump continued many, many months into the presidency of Joe Biden. Yeah, imagine that. A Democrat isn't actually any better than a Republican, and that in the end, they all serve the empire just because Donald Trump is frankly incompetent and an asshole. That doesn't make Biden in any way, shape, or form. That's complete and utter nonsense. Now, a spokesman for Trump and Biden didn't respond to any requests for comments about the clandestine program, as per usual. A Pentagon spokeswoman said the U.S. military uses a variety of platforms, including social media, to counter those malign influence attacks aimed at the U.S. allies and its partners. She also noted that China had started a disinformation campaign to falsely blame the United States for the spread of COVID. Now, they did contact Manila's embassy in Washington, but they did not respond to Reuters inquiries, including whether it had been aware of the Pentagon's operation. Briefed on the Pentagon's secret anti-vax campaign by Reuters, some American public health experts also condemned the program, saying that it put civilian lives in jeopardy to promote geopolitical gain, which is exactly what this was, sacrificing the lives of innocent people just to get one over on China. Now, these same facts were brought up to Sinovac, in the vaccine manufacturer in China, but they didn't respond to any comment either. Now, economic research recently published shows that when individuals developed skepticism towards a single vaccine, those doubts often led to uncertainty about other inoculations. So when the United States took this incredibly irresponsible position of undermining vaccines simply to undermine China, they didn't just endanger people over COVID. They endangered people over a ton of things because now they were skeptical of everything related to vaccines and inoculations because of it. Now, health experts say that they saw such a scenario play out in Pakistan when the Central Intelligence Agency used a fake hepatitis vaccine program in the Abbottabad region as a cover to hunt for bin Laden, the terrorist mastermind behind the attacks of September 11, 2001, which is a prime example of this. When that was revealed, all of a sudden vaccine programs became utterly a subject of suspicion as a result of that. Now wondering if it was another U.S. program to illegally operate inside the country. So here it is, science and medicine being undermined by U.S. imperialism. And the harm that this eventually caused for how many people died of a lack of vaccine or inoculation because of this. It's almost like public welfare doesn't actually matter to the United States. And this is actually all about geopolitical positioning. This is all about one section of the ruling class in the world trying to get over another section of the ruling class in another country, and really has nothing to do with trying to do what's best for people at all. And that the market magically just makes everything work and automatically does a rational allocation of resources, almost like the entire thing. It's complete and utter fucking nonsense. And it's only that such an idea is only the product of a Econ 101 textbook with no application to the real world whatsoever. Weird how that works. But here's some more. 1. The Philippines had among the worst inoculation rates in Southeast Asia. Only 2.1 million of the 114 million citizens were fully vaccinated, far short of the government's target of 70 million. By the time Duterte spoke, COVID cases exceeded 1.3 million and almost 24,000 Filipinos had died from the virus. The difficulty in vaccinating the population contributed to the worst death rate in the region. Basically, the United States is mad because people went to China to get the vaccine because Washington's plan, called Operation Warp Speed, placed no restrictions on what pharmaceutical companies could charge developing countries. So naturally, capitalism being capitalism, there being a high demand for this because people will fucking die if they don't get it, just charged people out the ass for it. And guess what? Developing countries, third world countries, poor countries cannot afford it because of the system that they had, the position they've been forced into because of the global economic order. Because, capitalism just magically makes everybody rich, right? And makes everything automatically work. And if you're not rich, therefore you don't deserve it. So hurry up and die. So China, having at least a modicum of humanity, decided to make that vaccine affordable and in some cases actually free to certain populations. While that angered the United States, because that was their money to make, that they perceived that they had the right to scoop up, or just didn't want China to get it to undermine their own development and economy. So really what we're looking at is the U.S. has sacrificed, the lives of millions of people just to undermine China. Because this isn't just the Philippines, this is Asia in general and Islamic countries as well. And it's not just people who die, but people who are now going to have long-term COVID effects because they didn't get a vaccine, because they were too busy spouting conspiracy theory nonsense because the fucking United States government was actually behind it. Which actually, in the end, makes this all kind of very interesting, that all those people who were screaming conspiracies that the government was trying to control you and do all the bad things with the vaccine in order to hurt you were actually carrying out the will of the United States government the entire time. Really, really goddamned ironic that those who were complaining that it was a plot by the government to actually get people to take it, that they, this entire time, were actually carrying out the U.S. government's wishes. Isn't the irony of the whole anti-vax movement in the West kind of really, really goddamned ironic? The government actually wanted people to take it because it was safe and they needed it to save their own economy and the population, yet they wanted other countries not to take it because it would destroy them, because it would harm their economy, because them dying would be a good thing. So all this time, as you were screaming that it was a government plot to get you to take it in order to kill you, it actually really fucking wasn't. And that not taking it would kill you, and that's what they fed to the enemy. So this actually kind of really puts an entire boot in the foot, a boot in the ass of people who spread conspiracy theory nonsense. Here it is, actual material proof that you are wrong and that you really had no idea what you were talking about. You spouted complete nonsense that you heard from some stupid asshole with a blog that had the word natural in the title, and that you were repeating complete nonsensical, usually oil company driven propaganda, that you were the ones spreading the misinformation. You were the ones carrying out the conspiracy the entire time because of your right-wing fucking nonsense. And here you are, proof that you were wrong. And then they won't acknowledge it. Conspiracy theory people don't admit that they're wrong, because if they did, they wouldn't be conspiracy theorists. That is the great, tremendous irony to all of this. They had absolutely no idea what the government was doing. Had none of it. And they had no understanding of how anything works. Because if there's one thing right-wingers cannot understand for the life of them, it's competing interests. Everything is one giant monolithic conspiracy, and there are no opposing forces, things working against other things, one section trying to get something from another section. It's all just one big, scary, monolithic boogeyman entity. I mean, these people literally believed that both the United States and the government of Cuba were both collaborating together against their own people for whatever various vaccine conspiracy they happen to believe in. And they really believe that. They're actually that stupid. They're literally saying that the government of Cuba and the government of the United States were in collusion and are therefore the same thing. Also, we are the land of the free and completely different from Cuba, which is evil, totalitarian, but also the exact same thing because they collude together all the time with the exact same interests. Yeah, it's like right-wing ideology is just completely nonsensical garbage. That's just emotionally driven drivel. That is whatever it is that they want it to be and doesn't have to make sense in any way, shape, or form. I know this has been a bit of a tangent, but one that was definitely worthwhile and one that definitely need to be said. So there you have it. Anti-vaccination ideas were actually the product of countries trying to screw each other over, not actually based on any, quote, real science or understanding of how vaccines work. It was all complete nonsense. And anti-vax people, this entire time, were complete fucking idiots that had no idea what they were talking about from the beginning. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, Comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.